All right, we're going to start doing our grade 9 essay. This is our science essay, and we're also learning how to use power numbers. So why this project? Because I've had multiple grade 12 students come to me and say that after they learned how to use power numbers, they use them for all their essays, and they're still using them in grade 12. It's a very useful skill to have so that you avoid plagiarism, because plagiarism is a big problem. And that's mostly because most people don't even realize that they're plagiarism or what plagiarism is. So after one semester of having to take a third of the class down to the staff room, and then we called up parents one at a time and explained that their kid had been caught for plagiarism, I thought, I've got to teach kids in grade 9 how to not plagiarize. Plus, it's going to help us with our research skills, and that's something we've been working on with the Eco House project. That's something that if we've done the Exploring Our Universe section, we would have done a lot of practice searching and finding information online. So this is our order of operations. First, we're going to find background information. Then we're going to make our power notes. Then we're going to finalize those power notes. We're going to write our essay. We're going to block it in a Word document. We're going to make a PowerPoint, and then you're going to send that final project in. So we're going to go through each one of these steps one at a time. So getting your background information. Week 1. Go online and find 5 websites related to your topic for each website. You copy the web address and paste it into a Word document, copy and paste the text from the website onto the Word document, and then print off that Word document. After you have those all printed off, you get a highlighter and you highlight the information that you want to include in your essay. Anything that answers the questions outlined by your teacher, as well as information that you find interesting that you think you would like to include in your essay. Example coming up. All right, to get my background information, first thing I want to do is open up a Word document. And then I'm going to open up the internet and I'm going to start researching my topic. Now, if I look at my topic, for the sample one here, we're doing cancer in the cell. And just like you have, there are a bunch of different suggestions as to what I should cover inside of my essay. So the first one is, what is the history of cancer? So I'm going to open up the internet. I'm going to go to the Google and I'm going to type in the history of cancer. And then early history of cancer, that looks like that could be of interest to me. And it says defining cancer, oldest description. Interesting. Origin of the word. Interesting. I think I'm going to use this. So I'm going to first copy the URL. So copy, go back to my Word document, paste, and then I'm going to go back to my website. I'm going to copy the text, early history of cancer, origin of the word, copy that. And I'm going to go back and hit paste. And then I can probably shorten this up a little bit and save some paper. All right, here we go. Whoop, whoop, whoop. And there we go. It's all on one page now. And I could then go file print. And after it's printed, I will go through with a highlighter and I will highlight the stuff that I think is of interest that I would like to have inside of my essay. I'm going to do that for a minimum of 5 websites. So when you're done, there should be at least 5 sheets with URLs at the top and the text from those websites below. And then we'll stop. After your background information has been collected, you got to start making your power notes. So start with your number 1s. That's the topic of each paragraph. That's the way I do it. Then you make your number 2s, and that's 1 or 2 words that outline the order of everything you want to talk about in that paragraph. After you have your 2s made, you start making your 3s, and those are things that describe the number 2s, like specific dates and terms that you find hard to remember, details that you're afraid that you might forget if you don't have them written down. And then sometimes you need number 4s, and those are just further details to your number 3s. Example coming up. All right, so I've got up my number 1s here, so you can see what my number 1s would look like for my cancer essay. So I pretty much break it down to what I want to talk about in each paragraph. So my first paragraph is going to be about the history. My next paragraph is about later history, which is what happened in the 20th century and the discovery of radiation therapy and chemotherapy. My next paragraph is what causes cancer to form. My next paragraph is going to be about how people with cancer are affected by cancer. Next paragraph is on treatments. And then the last paragraph is about how it comes down to the patient's choice. Now, if you're doing, all right, so my number one under history, I'm going to put my number twos as things I want to talk about in history. So I want to talk about the information I found about Egypt, about Hippocrates, about autopsies, cause of death, how they treated breast cancer in France in 1779, and the cell theory and its effect that the discovery of the cell theory had on cancer. When I go to my number threes, that further describes my number twos. So when I'm talking about Egypt, I want to make sure that I mention about cauterization with a fire drill in 1500 BC and that they thought it was incurable. You can see I used a 4 down here with talking about Hippocrates. So I want to talk about Hippocrates in history, that he's a Greek physician. He came up with the name cancer based on karkinos, which is the Greek word meaning crab, because he thought they looked like tumors look like crabs, and that he believed the body was made up of 4 fluids: blood, phlegm, yellow, and black bile. Now, even more detail I want in that number 3 was that for 1400 years after Hippocrates, they believed that cancer was caused by a buildup of black bile in the body. So again, my number ones are what my paragraphs are about. Number twos, the things I want to talk about in that paragraph. Number 3 is information about each one of those things I want to mention. Things like dates and specific words that I'm pretty sure I won't be able to remember or memorize. So I just want to put down a few words just to spark my memory as to what it is that I want to talk about in my essay. And that's it. Now that you've got your Power Notes done, you have to clean them up. You're only allowed 100 words in your Power Notes. They are not allowed to contain sentences, and words are not allowed to be run together so that a whole bunch of words only register as one word in your power numbers. That would be considered cheating. We want to have only 100 words. So we want only words that are going to trigger your mind to remember what it is that you had read so that you can write it in a sentence in your own words. Example coming. All right, so this is power numbers done, sort of ish, and then you've got to condense it down to 100 words. And the whole entire reason for that is you don't want to plagiarize. So we want to break it down to the smallest amount of words as possible that you can then re-expand, and it's still accurate, but it's in your own words. So if I look at this power number 3, it says in 1500 BC, the Egyptians would try to kill cancer through cauterization. This was done with an instrument called the fire drill. A piece of metal would be heated until it glowed. It would then be inserted into the patient and would cook the cells that were cancerous. Now that all the cancerous cells have been destroyed, the patient would now be cancer free. Now, right now I'm at 172 words because just inside of this individual power note I have, let's see how many words. I have 65 words. And if each one of my power numbers has that many words, I'm going to be way over 100 words. So I have to try to think of what words can I cut out, but it will still make sense to me. 1500 BC, like I said, I'm probably not going to remember that. I probably don't need the in part. I'll get rid of that. I've got Egypt here, so I don't need Egyptians. Cauterization, well, that's a term that I want to make sure that I keep in there because that's a tough word for me. So I want to make sure I keep that in my power numbers and that I use the word cauterization and that they use something called a fire drill. And everything else I read is quite graphic, and I don't think I'm going to forget that. So when I go to expand, I can probably just leave it as 1500 BC cauterization fire drill. All right, and then I've squished it down to like 111 word total. And I only have 1, 2, 3, 4 words here. Now, one of the things that is causing me to have extra words is that this 3 counts as a word on its own. Of course, that's not fair because your numbers shouldn't count for words in your 100 words. So I can backspace that right up against there, and that drops me down to now 110 words from 111. So that's acceptable. What some people do which is not allowed, is they will, of course, underscore like this, and then that brings their word count down to 108 because those 3 words are now counting as 1 word. Of course, those are still 3 words, and that is cheating, and that wouldn't be allowed. The other thing people do is they sometimes run it together like this, cauterization fire drill. That still, again, is 3 different words. Just because you mushed them together doesn't make it 1 word. So make sure you got those spaced out. But where I will accept, for sure, again, where I will accept no space and writing it together is right at the beginning, because those numbers that you put in there should not count in your total number count. And that. Now that your power notes are done, you're ready to write your essay. You are only allowed to use the power notes when you write your essay. Everything else has to be put away. You are not allowed to look at the background information or go online when writing your essay, because if I read a sentence, as soon as I go over to the computer, I'm probably going to type it very similar to what I just read. And if I do that, that's not in my own words, and you will get busted for plagiarism. There's a lot of people who believe if I just change 1 or 2 words, that isn't plagiarism, but it is. If I read, Jack jumped over the fence, and I'm like, oh, I'll write down Jack hopped over the fence, that's still plagiarism. Just changing a couple words here or there doesn't do it. It has to be completely in your own words, and that's why we're going with power notes. So before you begin, you should read through the power numbers again, and you should go through all that background information again. Just read the highlighted stuff so it's all fresh in your mind, and make sure that you know what everything in your power numbers means. Once you've got that in your head, you put everything away, just have those power numbers out, and then start writing your essay. My power numbers are done, and I'm ready to write my essay. So I should read over my background information a couple times, just the highlighted information, so it's fresh in my head. I put that away, and the only thing I have out when I'm writing my essay are my power numbers. So the history of cancer is quite interesting, and it dates back thousands of years. The earliest known case was recorded in Egypt on papyrus paper. In 1500 BC, the Egyptians would try to cure cancer through cauterization with a fire drill. A fire drill was a piece of metal that they would heat up to hundreds of degrees Celsius in a fire until it was glowing red. Then they would place it on the cancerous tumor and try to cook the cancerous cells. At that time, they thought that cancer was incurable. All they could do was try to ease the patient's suffering. Hippocrates was a Greek philosopher, and he's the one who gave cancer its name. Cancer is named after the Greek word karkinos, meaning crab. And the reason Hippocrates picked this is because he felt that cancerous tumors looked like crabs. At that time, they believed the body was made up of blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. And his belief was that when there's a buildup of black bile, that's what causes cancer. And that belief would remain for the next 1,400 years. Now, if I were to do that again, starting off at the top, my essay would be completely different. And that way I know I did not plagiarize in any sort of way, because it's all placed in my own words. Time to block your essay. You open a new Word document and move your essay over a little at a time. This will help you determine what you will be saying during each slide of your presentation. So now that we've got our essay done, it's time to block it. So I'm going to go over to this document here, and I am going to insert table, and I want a table that has 2 columns. And let's go with like 35 rows, because I can always delete those afterwards. This is going to be my slide number, and then this is going to be my text. My first slide is going to be, let me just write my numbers in here. And just keep on going on and on. I'll slide this guy over, grab him. And this is going to be my title slide, because in my presentation, the very first thing I'm going to have is just write my title, and then I'm going to move on to my introduction. So in my second slide, I'm just going to read this sentence. Believe it or not, cancer has afflicted people for several centuries. It is not a new disease. It is because of early research that we hold a greater knowledge of cancer today. And then I'm going to grab the next section here, and I'm going to drop that in there, and I'll find a picture to go along with that text. And then I'll grab this and I'll drop it in here, and I'll find a picture to go along with that text. I'll just keep on going until I've sent over my entire essay. Well, I think this would go well with this one here. Cauterization, and they can only ease the patient's suffering. And then talk about how karkinos is a Greek word meaning crab. I'll put that in here. Maybe I can put in a picture of a crab or something. All right, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to block my essay. Once I'm done, all of my essay is going to be over on this side. Sorry, all my essay is going to be over on this side. And then I'll know exactly how many slides I'll want to have inside of my PowerPoint. Time to make your PowerPoint. Find all your graphics. You only search for large images. We did that when we made the plant poster. We saw how to do that in Google. Advanced search, make sure you're only looking at large images so you don't have distorted pictures in your presentation. Only 1 to 2 pictures per slide, and try to include as few words as possible. Maximum 10, 0 is preferable. The fewer the words, the better. And then once you have your PowerPoint put together, you can start your voiceover. Example to come. So now I've got my power numbers. I got them printed off here. And I got them next to me for when I record my PowerPoint presentation. I have my, here it is, my slideshow all done. 1 to 2 pictures maximum on each slide. Lots of good looking stuff. It's time for me to start recording. So I go to slideshow, record slideshow, and I'll go start recording from current slide. As soon as I click start recording, I'm going to start talking. It's going to be recorded to my computer, and then I will hit escape as soon as I am finished saying what I want to say on that slide. Are you ready? It's going to be exciting. Start recording. Cancer by Mr. Sklar. And I hit escape. I got it there. See? From current slide. Cancer by Mr. Sklar. Oh, hope you can hear that. All right, so then I can do the next one. Record from current slide. Start recording. Believe it or not, cancer has afflicted people for several centuries. It is not a new disease. It is because of early research that we hold a greater knowledge of cancer today. And then I hit escape, and it's recorded there. So go back to here. I'll play from current slide. Cancer by Mr. Sklar. Believe it or not, cancer has afflicted people for several centuries. It is not a new disease. It is because of early research that we hold a greater knowledge of cancer today. So, 2 slides recorded, and I just work my way all the way down. If I'm not happy with what I said in one of those slides, I can always re-record it. That's what I've been doing a lot when I've been making these presentations, probably like 8 times per slide, because we're always more critical of ourselves than other people are probably. But after it's done, and you can send it in to me. Right, you're good to send in your final project. Hopefully it's not so large that it won't send by email. If it is too large, we'll just figure that out. Okay, guys, try your best. Look forward to seeing what you guys come up with.